No one learns anything. No one learns anything in the Covenant. That's my favorite thing about it.
In 2017, Universal Studios announced the birth of a new shared universe of monster movies, bringing their classic horror icons into the contemporary franchise film landscape. But after the critical and financial failure of its first installment, the project was indefinitely abandoned. Now, in 2024, the powers that be have called upon one pulp horror devotee and one snarky film critic to unearth the concept. I'm Dylan Roth.
And I'm Dalton DeShane.
Are you afraid of the dark universe?
Welcome back to Are You Afraid of the Dark Universe, the podcast where we attempt to resurrect Universal Studios' failed cinematic universe of monster movies, one pitch at a time. I am your son of the name of the town. No,
Ipswich,
I blew it.
Ipswich.
I am your son of Ipswich host, Dylan Roth.
And I am your handsome but mysterious new kid in town, Dalton DeShane.
And together we have been building out the Dark Universe into an ongoing narrative to rival the MCU. If you haven't seen the movie The Covenant, which is today's topic,
And who hasn't, though, really?
Yes. We all grew up with it. We all love it. Mm-hmm. If you haven't, then you won't know what we're talking about until later.
Sebastian Stan is huge right now. Most of the Letterboxd reviews for this movie were people being like, I watched this just because of Sebastian Stan.
Academy Award nominee and probable winner, I think.
Really?
For the wrong movie, but yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
Sebastian Stan is in this. So on this subject, every now and then we invite one of our favorite storytellers to plumb the depths of American cinema and find another intellectual property for us to fold into our massive franchise. Our guest this week is a journalist and internationally best-selling author of oh so many romance novels, including Love Story, The Christmas Wish, the I Heart series, also the children's book trilogy, Cinders and Sparks, and her new YA fantasy series, The Bell Witches. You might also know her as one of the hosts on the Maximum Fun Wrestling podcast, Tights and Fights. Please welcome to the Dark Universe, Lindsey Kelk.
Hello. Thank you so much for having me and that lovely introduction.
We're so stoked to have you here. Dalton and I have been listeners of Tights and Fights, the only wrestling podcast.
The only, yeah.
The only one, yeah. First, only.
For basically the duration. I think I started listening in 2015 or 16, which is when you guys were pretty new.
Just babies. Yeah, it's wild. We still think we just started. We forget every week. We're like, wait, how long has this been happening? And it turns out sometime. It turns out multiple years.
It's perfect having you on because I feel like our fan base is the Venn diagram intersection of horror fans, wrestling fans, and romance fiction fans. Like that is right where which is also like sort of generally where the fan fiction overlap lives.
And that's,
which is
that's
basically what we do. So having you on, it's like Ice Cream Christmas here in the Dark Universe.
Yay, truly. Well, we're on the road to Ice Cream Christmas
we
now.
Truly are.
We're recording this the night before the Royal Rumble, which I will be trying desperately not to have spoiled for me while I attend a friend's birthday party on Saturday night.
Oh, no.
I love you, Joe. Only for you, Joe.
Yes. But yes, wonderful to have you on. Great to have you here. And you have picked quite the film for us, which we will get into in a second. But first, I don't know if the average listener may think Lindsey Kelk and then think horror universe. And yet you do have a witch-inspired book coming up soon. Is there, do you think, there's a different question I want to ask, but I'm going to ask the one that just came to my head, which was, do you think your upcoming novel was in any way inspired by The Covenant?
I would have absolutely told you no until I just watched it 3 times in 3 days.
What?
And I'm like, you know what? Maybe it did pop in. Like maybe just a couple of snippets.
Why did you watch it 3 times in 3 days?
Because I watched it one time. I haven't watched it in a minute.
Okay.
And it's not even that long, but it's been a minute and time has happened and my brain has erased everything. So I rewatched it and I watched it the first time and I was surprised. I'm like, wow, I've forgotten all of this. So then I watched it again and just kind of had it on, you know, when something's just on. And then I realized I really wanted to pay attention to it. So I watched it a third time with subtitles. And I enjoyed that third watching more than I could ever hope anyone could understand. It was magical.
So really an exponential effect as you kept going. Maybe that's what I did wrong, is I didn't watch it 3 times in a row.
When we did Robot Monster with Bill Corbett, you watched that movie three times. Why didn't you pay The Covenant the same respect, Dalton?
3rd time's the charm.
By the end of those 3 times, I did love Robot Monster. So there is like somewhat of a, what is it?
A Stockholm syndrome,
Stockholm
I would
syndrome
say.
with films.
It's like with a pop song, you hear it for the first time, you're like, ugh. And then the 3rd time you are singing along word for word in the drugstore. That is what's happening with here with Robot Monster and now with The Covenant.
And this is what we do also to our listeners every week, every other week.
Yeah, Lindsey, can you tell us, might we presume that you first saw this film in 2006?
You might well.
As a young, extremely target audience for this film.
Well, you say young, but I would have been 25, so like, maybe a smidge older than they'd anticipated. I don't know. It's hard to say, but I absolutely saw it when it came out, 100%. Mm-hmm.
I'm surprised I didn't, because this was like the period for me in high school where I was going to the movies every weekend and was like just watching everything. And yet still I was like, I'd never heard of this one. Despite the star-studded cast as well.
Star-studded, exactly. It's such a fascinating film.
Stud,
like I genuinely,
for sure.
Yes.
Star-studded, emphasis on stud.
Mm-hmm.
It's stacked at the time. Firstly, I just think it's such a time capsule. Like, if nothing else, go back to it and enjoy some 2006, people.
Mm-hmm.
Like, lean into it. We didn't appreciate it when we had it. So, like, let's look at it again. But yeah, absolutely stacked cast. Made money. Made decent money. But the thing that I find so fascinating about it is, who is it for? Who is this film for?
Well, because it's basically like the elevator pitch is The Craft starring guys, but definitely for girls. But not really?
But not really, because of all of the light misogyny.
Yeah.
Yes,
so it's very confusing.
By men for sure. 100% by men for girls, but what do they know?
I mean, I will say, and I can't speak obviously for an entire queer audience, but I would watch this on the reg with my gay best friend on our hangover Sundays. And he spread that movie around London like wildfire. Like by the end of our tenure in London, we would have just packed houses on Sunday of everyone coming around to watch The Covenant with us.
Well, yeah,
hungover,
it definitely feels like it's a better fit there. But I don't think that in 2006, like Rennie Harlan and Screen Gems were deliberately targeting a queer audience.
Which is why I think it has worked for that. Because you can't deliver that on purpose. You can't make camp on purpose, or like it's very hard, right? So I think that's where it's ended up. I don't think that's where it meant to be.
But as soon as you...
how lucky they are.
As soon as you put pen to paper and write the line, I'm going to make you my weotch.
Yes.
You are in the camp territory. You have entered camp.
You are if you can get Oscar-nominee Sebastian Stan to deliver it dead to camera.
Yes.
As serious as cancer. More serious than Michael Caine threw out a Muppet Christmas Carol.
Yeah,
like,
Sebastian
this is the intensity he brings.
He's a real
Those
actor.
of you all playing the Lindsey Kelk drinking game, Muppets Christmas Carol has been invoked. You can check that box. You can do your shot.
It's happening. It's happening.
The most shocking thing about this movie to me is that it predates Twilight. Because watching it, I was like, oh, I get it. You know, Twilight, massive hit, hunky vampire. Someone in a studio somewhere was like, all right, hunky witches, I'm going to write the check. Let's get this out this summer, you know. It just seems like, oh yeah, like this dark fantasy romance thing is huge because of Twilight. We got to capitalize on it. But that's not the case.
Well,
it's 2 years. Well, I mean, maybe the book was out. Yes.
The book was out.
But this movie looks like Twilight.
The movie.
It does. They do have the same sort of like
palette.
It's the same sort of music, like goth music video vibe that they have visually.
Yeah.
What's funny is like, so this is directed by Rennie Harlan, who is like a real hit or miss sort of like fun schlock director.
Yeah.
Like he did Die Hard 2, which is like a lesser Die Hard, but then he also did The Long Kiss Goodnight with his then wife Gina Davis, which fucking rules. That movie's fantastic.
And honestly,
and Deep Blue Sea.
you gotta respect someone who is married to Gina Davis.
Oh, but you don't, because they did not stay married. He dropped the ball. If you drop the bag
That's
bad,
true.
you lose my respect.
You fucked up.
Yeah.
Yes.
And he really dropped it too. He was just like, "Hey, babe, what if I had a child with my assistant?"
Is that what happened?
I don't think. Yeah, I don't think Gina should be.
We do not stand.
Understanding. You can make as many cliffhangers as you like, and you can't come back from that.
Yeah,
I'm afraid.
You fumbled Gina Davis,
Yeah.
dog.
Mm-hmm.
He is also
Idiot.
the director of the new Strangers trilogy, The Strangers Part 1.
He made your shit list even earlier by directing one of the Exorcist prequel.
Oh, yeah, the one that they
The
made
beginning.
two of.
They made two different versions of. He's the credited director on Exorcist: The Beginning. I think the other one is somebody generally more respectable, right?
Yeah, the other Paul Schrader.
Paul Schrader did the other one. That's right.
Paul Schrader made an Exorcist sequel called Dominion Prequel to The Exorcist and finished it, and then the studio didn't like it, so they hired Rennie Harlan to make his own version of the same movie, and they both came out. And neither of them are
Beautiful.
good. Anyway.
Now, the writer of this film
I love Hollywood.
Personally, I would love to be paid to make half of a movie or...
This is why people, the industry is falling apart. I live in LA. I'm married to a TV film editor. Like, I'm adjacent to the industry every day. And everyone's constantly like, it's falling apart. It's not like it used to be. But you don't say. You don't say. You're telling me there isn't double Exorcist prequel money running around this industry anymore? What? What
Did
world
you
do we
know
live in?
that last year, I learned this from On Cinema at the cinema with Tim Heidecker, but last year, there were 4 movies titled Inheritance or The Inheritance that came out in
Sure, why
2024.
not?
4 different movies called Inheritance. That's insane.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Well-
we love Hollywood.
The writer of this film, J.S. Cardone, has a sort of a more fun filmography in the sense that he's the author of a number of sort of spooky mystery, low budget movies. One of which he is the writer and director of a film called The Scare Hole.
The Scare Hole?
The Scare Hole. Now, this was not the
Interesting.
original title of The Scare Hole. The Scare Hole was supposed to be called something like they ran into an armadillo or like something weird and like specifically folksy. And someone's like,
there's a
Mummy
movie-
and the Armadillo.
Mummy and the Armadillo. What the hell?
But it's stylized where it's armadillo. But apparently that was not
Fascinating.
focus testing. So instead they thought a better name for this movie would be The Scare Hole.
Oh, but look at that cast.
Absolutely stacked.
Hold on. Where is the Scare Hole? I
The
need to see the
Scare
Scare
Hole.
Hole. Is it one
This
word?
is
It's 2 words.
Oh.
great.
The Scare Hole. It's not going to have a Wikipedia
It
page.
does not have a Wikipedia page.
It does have an IMDb, and I mean Buffy's own Claire Kramer in the lead role here.
Oh my goodness.
Glorificus herself.
Wow,
I
she was in another
mean-
thing. She was great as Glorificus.
Jodie Lynn O'Keefe, Vampire Diaries' own Jodie Lynn O'Keefe. You can see where they ended up here.
Well, I mean,
Wow.
this is probably a pretty good segue into talking about this extremely CW-ass
Yes.
film that we
Yes,
watched,
yes.
The Covenant. This is, featuring someone who would be on Gossip Girl 6 months later, Sebastian Stan also, 2 Gossip Girl people in this film.
Mhm.
Plus Taylor Kitsch.
It feels so much like a CW pilot that accidentally got put in theaters. Like
100%.
there was a clerical error and it got put in the wrong shipment and made it into an AMC somewhere. Down to the ending, which
It feels, it has
seems to tee up at least a sequel.
very half-heartedly.
Yeah.
They're like, where's the villain? I don't know.
He disappeared.
Okay, let's drive
Movie's
off.
over.
We don't get it would be cheesy, but no cheesier than the rest of the movie for there to be a thing where he appears as a wisp of wind at the end or does a maniacal laugh to be like, ha ha ha, I'll be
Yeah.
back. They don't even do
Would
that.
have loved to see it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
By the end, it's like, oh, okay, well, episode 2 will be out next week. But before we get too deep into the plot summary, because we are going to have to recap this, Lindsay, what is your background with horror in general? Do you consider yourself a horror fan, or do you like the more sort of dark fantasy side of it?
It's an interesting question. I was thinking about it earlier because I assumed you would ask it, as it's a valid question. So I never would have said I was a horror girl because I grew up in the 80s and 90s, and to me, at that time, horror was sort of the Freddy Krueger type stuff, all the slashery 80s stuff, and I was petrified of it as a kid. cannot stress enough to you how afraid I was. My cousin one time, I'm going to call him out, he's not listening, locked me in his bedroom and sang the Freddy Krueger song through the door. And I would have been like 6-ish. And then that night, my grandmother took us to the video store and they had a Freddy Krueger cut out at the top of the stairs and he pushed it at me. And I we're talking like this is nearly 40 years ago and I am scarred, I tell you. And I just think it put me off horror for so long. And I would have said like, no, absolutely not. And then when I actually look back, there's so much horror in all my favorites. Like I was reading Stephen King, I was reading James Herbert, I was reading the Point horror books, the Goosebumps books, anything fantasy horror adjacent, Buffy, all that stuff. I was obsessed. And then later into the 90s, when I was sort of late teenager, Scream, Halloween H2O, like the Faculty, like all of those movies,
the Faculty
obsessed, right? And then they brought a lot of the classic horrors back into the cinema in the UK in the late 90s. So we got The Exorcist was unbanned, so they put it back in cinemas. And I remember going to see that on Halloween and just being blown away. And I just think I still would have said I'm not a horror person just because it was never front of mind to be. Also, I was a hateful intellectual snob like in my 20s. Hate myself for it now. Need to go back and get that time back. And I think that's so interesting as being a romance writer now, is romance and horror have so much in common for being maligned for being a genre. And it makes me so mad that the idea that something is less than because it's niche. Like, what is wrong with people? But yeah, when I look back, just absolutely tons of it. And then I skipped out a bit again because like when the Saw stuff came in, like I really don't like that slashery jump scare, body horror type stuff. That really puts me on edge. But then I realized I just needed to go in and find the weirder end of horror. Like I really love a lot of 80s weird stuff. Like we're all over Criterion in the Criterion app in this house, but we don't know what else to watch. It's like, just go and find something bizarre on Criterion. Like, obviously, like everyone else alive right now, love David Lynch. Like anything that he does, I just want to know what it is and get under the skin of it. Went all the way back and watched like all the classic monster movies, and then stuff like The Black Cat and I love comedy horror, so like The Ghost of Mrs. Muir and all that kind of weirder stuff.
These are all movies that we've done on the show.
Yeah.
Well, and I know that now because I was like, I know what we'll talk about.
Well,
Like,
please
no, we
treat
won't.
yourself to
No,
Merritt
we
Kay's
won't.
episode about the Black Cat and
Magnolia.
also Magnolia
sniped
Seidel's,
you on and Ghost of Mrs. Muir
is a really good episode.
Such a great movie. But
It really is.
I loved all of those. It's just, there's so much random stuff out there that I never would have found it. And just by saying like, oh, I don't like horror. But to say you don't like horror is like saying I don't like food. Like, or I don't like pizza. Like, there is a pizza for you. Like, just try all the different kinds of pizzas.
Yeah.
So absolutely, it turns out I love horror. I just needed to find the right one.
You and I have a similar trajectory because, like, as shocking as it may be to listeners of this show, I was like pretty old before I was like, oh, I'm like a horror person, because my version of that, like Freddy Krueger cutout, was my cousins had a life-size Chucky doll that they love to like throw at you from across the room.
Man.
Cousins are the fucking worst.
Cousins are the worst.
The worst.
But yeah, I read Goosebumps and I read Stephen King from like way too young of an age and
so young,
like
so
devoured
young.
it. But like, I don't know if it was the case for you when you were younger, but like reading horror was always easier than watching anything. Like I was terrified of watching anything horror, but I could always read it because like, I don't know, like even though my imagination
me and my friends watched the It miniseries on VHS. We got it out from the video store because we're idiots and we thought we were cool. And I went home being like, no, didn't even care about that. I'm 12 and badass and it doesn't bother me in the slightest. Proceeded to have the worst nightmares anyone's ever had for like weeks. And the only way I could get rid of it was to go and get the book. I went and got the book out of the library and I read the book. And once I had read the book and got under the skin of it, it was way more scary because it's not a big stupid spider creature. And B, I was like, oh, I get this now. I get this now. The book is manageable.
Yeah.
So yeah,
it removes some of the mystery somehow, you know.
Yeah, it gives you control of it. If reading gives you so much more control of a narrative because so much of it lives in your imagination, I think. Whereas, you know, like a movie I went to see. So I went to see the Blair Witch Project when it came out in the UK, and I would have been 18, I think. And it was a preview screening, and I didn't know anything about it. But my boyfriend at the time was like, "Oh, it's in this cool, I don't know, they were advertising it at uni, we should go." And we went in, and it was still pitched as a real documentary. And they had all of these press cuttings, and it was done like pretty cheaply, so you believed it. They had all these boards with newspaper articles stuck to it and stuff. And I was like, oh God, this is creepy. This is so strange. And when we came out of the movie, they'd taken everything away, and they were just hanging, the little wooden dolls were hanging from the ceiling.
Yeah.
And
so
I have never been more afraid since I was a child locked hearing the Freddy Krueger song. And that, like, because you can't take that out. It's a visual stimulus. Like, you've seen it. Your brain has locked that in forever now. Like, there's nothing you can do. A book, at least it's words, and you can reread it until it loses its power, I guess. I don't know. But there's something about the visual stimulus of a horror movie which is just so powerful.
Yeah, and Blair Witch, I mean, like, really a triumph because, like the scariest thing that you see in that movie is like a bundle of sticks, you know, like in a little doll shape, like, and a man standing in the corner. And like, that's all they have to do. And it's one of the scariest fucking movies, you know.
Yeah, not knowing anything about it, like, I wish everyone that saw it ever could have had that experience, because I talk to people about it now. And my husband edits Yellow Jackets, the TV show, and they had one of the directors, I think it was on Yellow Jackets, but he's worked with one of the directors from Blair Witch on one of his TV shows, and he's a fascinating guy, but he's like, everyone now comes at us and is like, oh my God, like, that lame. But you don't know, you weren't there at the time.
Been there. See, like, I was a little younger, and so my first exposure to Blair Witch really was the really good parody they did with Scooby-Doo on Cartoon Network in like commercial interstitials leading up to the release of a Zombie Island. And so I got desensitized to it, or at least I thought I did, until I finally did watch Blair Witch like a decade later, knowing everything, right? But not as much as I thought I did. Knowing, you know, obviously knowing what people tell you about it doesn't prepare you. Still freaks you out. Great film.
Yeah.
I would say it holds creepy. Up. I just watched it, I think, a year or two ago. My girlfriend, who's also a romance author, she had never seen it and knew everything about it, you know, knew it wasn't real and everything. Freaked her the fuck out, you know, like, and even me, like, creepy. Every time I turn it on, I'm like, man, it's just not going to hit the same. And then it does, you know. But anyway,
you know what movie starring witches that
we're here
isn't
to talk
very
about
scary?
Witches. Scarier witches.
Yeah, I would say the scariest thing about The Covenant is the acting, I guess. If you met someone who behaved like this in real life, you would freak out.
This is how everyone in a 2006 movie behaved, though.
There's a thing where I was watching this where characters, like, their log line is a hot girl, and they have like a certain voice and a certain way they carry their body. And there's an equivalent for the hot guy, which where they all talk like this and they move their bodies like snakes all the time, like they're trying to hypnotize you as
just
they talk to you.
Constantly undulating, just never standing still, and always touching their mouths, always touching their faces.
We gotta make sure that Kate's okay. And they all talk exactly the same, and they all look exactly the same. This let's get some of the plot synopsis out of the way. The Covenant takes place at a prep school in Massachusetts, populated entirely by male models, with names like Caleb and Chase. And I guess
Chase is the actor's name.
No, there's also a Chase.
There is a Chase.
Yeah, there's an actor Chase too.
There is a Chase. The best one is that Taylor Kitsch plays a man named Pogue Perry. His name is Pogue, and it took me forever to realize that his name is Pogue. Like, they kept saying his name. Are they saying Pogue? His name is Pogue. Caleb, Chase, Pogue, and Tyler. A character who serves no purpose at all.
There's always going to be a Tyler.
There are these 4 17-year-olds. I guess maybe some of them are a little bit younger. Tyler
these
certainly
4
reads younger.
30-year-old, 17-year-olds.
Yes. And they are the heirs to basically the bloodlines that founded this little town of Ipswich. In Massachusetts. And they're witches. It's the firstborn son of each of these lines. And they have access to incredible magic powers. They get a little taste at 13, and then at 18, they become
They ascend.
They ascend. They go Super Saiyan. They have unbelievable magic powers, but there's a catch because using magic, and we're going to put the word using in italics every time we say it so you understand the metaphor here. Using magic is addictive and it drains your life force so that you will gradually grow older the more you use it. And the more you use it, the harder it is to stop. So these four lads, these four handsome swimmers, they are of course swimmers because
they have to be shirtless.
What is a hotter sport for someone to do?
Yeah.
They are they're on the cusp of turning 18. First will be Caleb Danvers, played by Stephen Strait, now more famous as the lead of The Expanse. No one in this film has done a Star Trek, but he's the lead of The Expanse. That's going to check the box for me. He's like the cool, smart, sweet, responsible one. He takes care of his alcoholic mom.
I'm so glad you're doing this because I watched this movie like a week and a half ago because we were originally supposed to record this last week. I've forgotten just about everything.
And Lindsay picked the movie, and she also had lost a lot of it. So it's clear that this is not a movie that necessarily sticks in your head great, except for, I gotta tell you, Dalton.
It smooths out your brain so beautifully. Like it literally gets into your brain and strokes it.
It's
until
like
your
putting
brain
your brain
in
one of those rock polishers.
I have two advantages here. One is that I watched it this morning.
Yeah.
Two is I kind of loved it. I don't think it's good.
Great.
I don't think it's good, but I did really like watching it. It is, to me, the perfect candidate for this show because there's so many ideas that are fun and that are executed in like a really wild way that I wouldn't recommend.
But movies like that are almost too easy for this show because it becomes really tempting to be like, well, we could make this movie and just make it good. You know, like what if we just kept everything the same, but like did it better?
All right, hang on. Let's finish the summary here.
Yes.
Okay, so getting up to Caleb's 18th birthday, some mysterious happenings are happening. There are some mysterious goings-on in town, and they all seem to circle around this new kid played by Sebastian Stan. He's played, his name is Chase Collins. He's a rich kid who just transferred into this prep school. He's
the different man in town.
Yes, he's a different man, and you might say he's something of a sorcerer's apprentice. So we're going to spoil the end of this movie because we kind of have to in order to work backwards to it and then do the pitch. He is actually the fifth member of the Sons of Ipswich, this other family that they thought the bloodline ended with the witch trials, and his family was burned at the stake. Turns out there is an heir, but he didn't grow up knowing about the dangers of using magic. So he used magic a lot and got hooked. So by the time he turned 18, he was super addicted to doing magic and also a raging asshole. Was he already an asshole? We don't know, but he certainly is now. So not only has he already ascended to the full power of a mature witch, he also absorbed his father's power. So he's like double powerful compared to all of these still adolescent witches.
Hold on. We haven't talked about Darklings yet.
All right, we'll get to Darklings, okay?
We got to go back to the Darklings.
So Chase
We haven't
Collins,
talked about how he got his father's power and the fact that he just keeps straight up killing people.
Yes.
He's like Sylar from Heroes.
He is. He like eats people's brains. He gets their powers, and he has a really intense stare.
Yeah.
And he's a heartthrob only in certain contexts.
Just like Sylar.
So Chase is basically using magic to extort Caleb into willing him his powers when he turns 18. So he's like, I will kill your girlfriend and her roommate who's dating your brother, and then your brother and all your family and everyone you love, unless when you turn 18, the first thing you do with your power is you give it to me, so I am become a Super Saiyan times 3, and I will continue to become more powerful and then hopefully not die. I mean, that's basically the plot of the movie. He's got to try...
Except for Darklings.
Except for there are also these things called Darklings, which are not explained, and I like that, actually, Dalton. Because I think that Darklings speak for themselves. Lindsay, have I left out anything important you would like to make sure gets added into this summary?
I like that we only see the Darkling one time, because the second time the Darkling appears, it's off camera because we can't afford to see him again. I love that. I love that so much. And I just think it's important to know that when you will someone your power, you will die. So when Chase got his power from his biological father, when he bullied him into killing himself, basically, he made his biological father will him his power, which would have then led to his death. He also accidentally on purpose killed his adoptive parents, which seems a bit rude. I don't know what they did. So when he wants Caleb to will him his power, he's saying you will have to die, basically. He's like, kill yourself or I'm going to kill your friends. It's life or death stakes, people.
Yes.
And we know he's done it before. He's killed before and he'll kill again.
One of the things that I think makes this feel more like a TV pilot than a movie is just how detailed the lore is. Like, it feels like there's way more here than they really have time to dive into in the 97-minute runtime. Like, the whole idea that there is, like, the fact that they named those things Darklings, you know, like, that is like YA world building, right? That is something you build a 7-book series on. The fact we've got these...
We don't get explained what Darklings are. They all know. I like this, actually, Dalton. I think Darkling speaks for itself. Is a weird ghost thing. It appears to you. It's ominous. Freaks you out.
It's a bad omen.
It's
someone who has
died. Takes the form of a recently dead person who maybe has been killed by magical means. It's a clue. A Darkling is a clue, and that's it. Maybe there's more to it, but we don't need that right now.
We don't need that right now,
but it might be relevant in book 2.
That's the thing. Is like there's a lot of building blocks
situation
here that like they're telling this, you know, fairly simple story of, okay, there's like this secret other witch and he wants their power, but like the amount of words and concepts you could make Wikipedia pages out of, like is not commensurate with the actual plot of the film. It seems like there's way more we haven't even
talked about the Book of Damnation.
The Book of Damnation.
See, we were robbed when 6 more Covenant films.
We see that this was chapter 17 in the Book of Damnation. That means that there are 16 previous chapters.
Did I miss this? What happens?
It's just when you see the book closes is the end of the book, and you can see that like what we've just seen, like words appear in fiery
the Sons
ink.
of Ipswich.
Sons of Ipswich, chapter 17 or whatever. I think 17. Like that is like a New Hope situation where it's like, there's so many stories here. And I think that's good.
Yeah. I mean, how many generations going all the way back to the 17th century? And that's just when they arrived in America. Like they talk about the fact that the families escaped England to come to America. Why were they escaping England? I think we know.
This has prequel written all over it. There's so much meat on this
based
bone.
On a book series.
The only thing it has is characters that are interesting.
The only thing it doesn't have.
Or magic that doesn't look like balls of water. That's the only thing this thing is missing. Because in this world, the peak of magical power is being able to make like an Aquaman-style water ball and throw it at somebody. And then maybe if you're more powerful, you can catch it and make it bigger and throw it back.
Everyone's doing Kamehamehas back and forth. It's magic Dragon Ball Z style.
Yeah, I didn't pull that Super Saiyan thing out of my ass, Dalton. It's all really over this thing.
Yeah, I'm looking on the Wikipedia page because like this feels like the movie where there should be a like canceled sequel subhead, you know, and there's not.
Yeah.
And I don't know if people are just
there was a graphic novel.
Yes,
there was a graphic novel sequel, which always
have you
as someone
read it?
Who has also worked no, sadly not, but I've worked in licensing and I've seen this. I worked in license publishing for a long time, and then this is very often the aborted sequel route to production. So I feel like, were we able to get our hands on a copy of the graphic novel? My birthday will come eventually. We would know more. Yeah. I don't know about what. I don't know if it would tell us anything about Darklings. I don't know if it would tell us more about the Book of Damnation. I don't know if we would tell us why Caleb's mother's eyebrows are penciled on like that. I have so many questions that I need to be answered. Why have they got a stuffed leopard in their house? Why does Kate and Sarah have a giant, like A4-sized framed picture of a dog, just the dog's face on their bedside table? I have so many questions.
Well, there's the questions that I end up with are also like those sort of TV pilot things where. So there are 4 of these Sons of Ipswich at the beginning of the movie. The 5th, Sebastian Stan is the 5th one, that's the surprise one, right? There only need to be 3 in the gang because Tyler, played by Chase Crawford, does nothing.
No, Tyler's huge in book 3. By the time you get to book 3, Tyler's basically the main character.
Tyler, he has almost...
Because we have to have Pogue as the best friend. Yeah. So Caleb is our lead boy.
And then
we have to have Pogue is the best friend, and then Reed is our red herring. We're led to believe that it's Reed
He's
that's
the bad
using.
boy.
Yes, he's got the bleach white hair.
Yeah, he's got the Justin Bieber.
He's such a Draco Malfoy that he even shouts, "Harry Potter can kiss my ass" at
kiss
some
my
part
ass.
in the movie. He's
So early in the
extremely
movie.
Draco coded.
And he's British. The actor is British. So
Toby
I
Hemingway.
love this for him. Yeah, love this for him. He's my favorite one. He's the best one. But yeah, there's no need for a Chase Crawford apart from to have a Chase Crawford.
Do you think they sold this as like, oh, Harry, I keep coming at it from the Twilight angle, but maybe they were like, hey, we want to make a Harry Potter for the older crowd, for the mall crowd, for the,
I mean, you could, because it is in a boarding school.
Yeah.
So that's smart. You've already taken the parents out of the equation, which is why so much YA is set in boarding schools, because she's got the parents out of the way before we even start. I just always assumed it was, because this is all that Hollywood does is X meets X, but it's the Lost Boys meets the Craft, right?
Yeah, exactly.
That was their pitch. They walked in and someone just gave them a check for $20 million and said, be gone with you, come back with a masterpiece. And they did it. They delivered.
We were born in the wrong time, Dalton.
But I don't know how much coke was been done at that meeting. Like, I don't know how many drugs were consumed. Not that I'm suggesting any were, but if they were, I'd like to know which ones and how much. But it's there's 1,000 questions. Like, you go into this movie knowing nothing and you come out with more questions than you could ever hope to have answered by an infinite number of sequels, prequels, accompanying novelizations, T-shirts, an entire land at Universal. Like, I don't know.
We should have the Covenant land. Yeah, we're gonna have to go back
we
to
should
our
have a
previous
Covenant
guest,
land.
Alicia.
We'd go to Ipswich.
Yes.
It would be like Halloween Horror Night, but not.
You get to
you just
attend
get hit by water bubbles.
the fall dance, which we don't really get to enjoy in the
full
movie
ball.
because they set up the idea that the climax might take place at the fall ball. But
Didn't
it
have
does
the
not.
money.
It is just
happens in
another
a
place
barn.
for a bunch of the characters to be so that they don't participate in the climax. Once again, very TV thing to do.
We get formal wear. We love that.
We
the
do
CW
love that.
in us.
We get to see our leading lady in a very nice gown.
Oh God, I love it so much.
I'm noticing on the Wikipedia page, Pogue Perry is not the only alliterative name in the cast. We also have Aaron Abbott and my favorite, Bordy Becklin.
I have no memory of Bordy
I don't know who Bordy Becklin was.
I'm not familiar with Bordy's work.
He's pretty far down on the list, right above Steven Crowder, who is the right-wing asshole from the Change My Mind memes.
He apparently has a very small bit.
He's in the party.
film.
Yeah, he is at the party at the beginning of the film.
Which is nice. Did not ruin my experience.
Yes. Well, we gotta bring Steven Crowder back for the remake.
Oh, absolutely.
You know?
Can't do the Covenant without Steven
Crowder. Change my mind. Is he alive? I hope not. Anyway, I will not say anything actionable on this podcast.
Not when we have a guest.
Despite politics today making me want to. No one's coming to my house. All right. Anything else we want to say about the Covenant?
There's just so much to say. There's so much. I mean, it's the worst dialogue of any film I've ever watched, and that's one of the reasons I love it. The ADR is the worst ADR that ever was ADR'd. Like, you try and catch one word come out of these actors' mouths. Even when they're looking directly at camera, they've redubbed it.
Yeah.
Like, you can tell so many times that they've dubbed stuff, and I'm like, why? This was just poorly done. If you had to dub when Sebastian Stan is speaking directly to camera, you just did a bad job that day. Someone did their job poorly. But yeah, just the exposition. We love an exposition dump. I just can't stress enough that if you're not feeling your best and you just need to have a little lie down on the settee, maybe you've got a cat with you, maybe you've got a dog. I don't know. Just a nice cup of tea and a biscuit. Have a nice, I don't know, just something, just a lovely treat. When your brain says, I need a little treat, the Covenant is your little treat. It's a sweet 97 minutes. You will come away from it so much happier than you went in. That's all I can say.
Yeah, travel back to 2006, a simpler time. It'll
We're
smooth
making
your brain
really
right
bad
out.
penis jokes.
Yeah.
We're making Harry Potter jokes.
The thing is, the dialogue is bad, but it's bad in a very fun way. It's the Yeah, the
Yeah.
Harry Potter line, the what does he say about the
witchy.
penis?
We haven't even talked
He
about
says,
ooh, witchy.
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 Yeah. The thing is, like, if they had let the tone of this movie be like a different kind of arch, then like if you let Sebastian Stan go like Jim Carrey on the line, ooh, witchy. Like, that's a trailer
Over the top.
line.
Yeah.
Like, that's just let him be Willem Dafoe in everything he's in now.
Yes.
You know, like, that's what this should have been. Like,
let's have Robert
I just
Eggers
feel like you could watch
remake.
Nosferatu and then you could watch this and you could see a line. I'm going to say,
well,
the tone was off.
Lindsey,
the tone was off and one person was doing it right.
Lindsay, you're about to pitch us your remake. You can put Willem Dafoe in it. You can sell us.
Don't tempt me.
Okay, well, Willem Dafoe has been in one of our guest pitches before.
Has he?
Kendra Wells put Willem Dafoe in The Thing That Couldn't Die as the disembodied head.
That's right. We'd have just Willem Dafoe's head. Well, that's okay.
But the
So
rest of his body has never been in a Dark Universe movie. So if you want to just use him from the neck down, that's free. That's good.
And if any actor should get to do double duty in the Dark Universe, it should be Willem Dafoe. We can let him do whatever he wants. If he'll sign on, great.
Willem, you can direct. We're fine with that too.
Ooh, Willem Dafoe's The Covenant.
Well,
that's something.
Yes.
Folks,
yes.
We're going to take a quick break and then we'll get to hear who Lindsey Kelk thinks should direct and star in the Dark Universe remake or maybe requel, who knows, of The Covenant. Or sequel.
We've said that
it can be whatever you imagine.
Could be a sequel, prequel. We'll see what Lindsay has in store.
All right.
Hi there, my name is Ella Dawson, also known as Dr. Jennifer Halsey from the Dark Universe, and I am so excited because I just published my first book. It's called But How Are You Really? And it's about Charlotte Thorne, a bisexual, anxious young woman who reluctantly attends her college reunion. During the 4-day weekend on campus, she reconnects with her queer-chosen family, tries to avoid her abusive ex-boyfriend, and plays sexually charged beer pong with the senior year situationship she maybe shouldn't have ghosted 5 years ago. It's a romance novel for cynical millennials and anti-capitalist Zoomers. Paste Magazine called it one of the most anticipated books of 2024. But How Are You Really is available in hardcover, as an ebook, or in audiobook form. Thank you for listening, and happy reading.
And we are back here in the Dark Universe with our guest, Lindsey Kelk, who is about to give us her pitch for the Dark Universe version of The Covenant.
2006.
Sadly, my original pitch was just, let's do it well. Yeah. But that's already been taken off the table.
I mean, you can say that. We can figure out a way to just specifically do it well.
Got to make that into 45 minutes of conversation.
Which is, I feel like we're going to do that really easily. I just feel like every time I watch it, I believe there is a good movie in here.
Yes.
But we haven't seen it. I feel like we send the script back for another pass so that we don't have, like, taking candy from a baby in there. Let's take that line out, you lazy, lazy, lazy people. Let's remove some of the light misogyny.
Sure.
Let's take out blowing up the girl's skirt and betting on what color her panties are.
I forgot about that. I forgot about the bare woman's ass.
It never ends. Bare woman's ass. The women just sit here and watch the boys have fun. And it's like, no, we don't. We dance around in a very sexualized fashion. That's what women do. I'm like, oh, that's not better. That's not better. We give the women characters.
It's like a 60s pop song where it's like, here is a female voice telling you about what it is to be a woman, written by a man.
Yeah.
Please imprint on this because it's useful to me, the writer of this thing.
Truly. And just a really egregious use of Joan Jett, too. I'm like, this is not, don't bring her into this. Don't bring I Love Rock and Roll in. At least use the Britney version. Like, don't bring Joan's original version into this.
People in this era were obsessed with bringing Joan Jett into places she didn't deserve to be, including Repo the Genetic Opera and this film. Everyone that was trying to make this, like, dark gothic aesthetic was like, we got to get Joan in here. Joan, you can say no. You're allowed to say no.
She doesn't need the money. She doesn't need it. I don't know what her clearance fee is on I Love Rock and Roll. I assume it's tuppence at this point because she's made that money back.
It's not a Joan Jett original. So she doesn't. So she gets the mechanical.
She's getting
fees,
a performance fee,
but she doesn't get the composition.
Also, Joan Jett, you can say no to Ronda Rousey.
You also could do that.
We encourage
please.
that.
We've all tried. Yeah. Some of us have actively said no to Ronda Rousey, but that's just those of us that have had the option to interview her.
Yeah.
But that's
no,
that's
you.
the choice we've made, and I stand by it.
Yes,
I got to say yes
choice.
to Joan Jett one time. I met her, and she said, "Be wild, all right." I'm like, "Yeah."
Yes.
I will.
Yes,
that's
Joan
a
Jett.
perfect interaction.
I will be wild.
It's a perfect interaction.
Thank you, Ms. Jett.
Well, my first suggestion, because we kind of were circling around it the whole first half of the episode, do we just make this a series?
Absolutely.
I feel like there's potential here. We don't have to make this a movie. This can be our Peacock streamer. We already have Teen Wolf, which was pitched to us by Joseph Fink. We're building out our Peacock library. We've got Teen Wolf as our sort of Buffy style teen drama.
So maybe this is our Charmed, right? And
yes,
they can air
exactly.
on like Monday, Tuesday, or whatever.
This is our slightly more romance than adventure-ish, maybe, or
you've got your Vampire Diaries. This is your Vampire Diaries. This is your Buffy. This is your Charmed. This is your Vampire Academy, to a lesser extent, but absolutely. And I think you start with a feature-length episode.
Yes, exactly.
Because we love that on Peacock.
We do,
and then
this
we
as
see
our
where
pilot.
we go.
Yeah.
And then we've got a Yellowstone situation where we're spinning off left, right, and center.
That's right. Yeah.
Well, then maybe instead of trying to rewrite this movie, we massage it a little bit, and then we talk about what we want to do with the rest of a first season.
Okay.
We do need to create a new cast, pick a new cast.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And if we're not going to pick a director like we normally do for films, maybe we want to pick like a showrunner.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which it does feel like, you mentioned Yellow Jackets.
I did.
This does feel like you could take the showrunners of Yellow Jackets, and this would be...
Well, and I know them, so I would dearly love to deliver this to them. But two of the showrunners of Yellow Jackets, the creators of the show, Ashley Lyle and Bart Nickerson, also were showrunners on The Originals, which was a CW show. So they do have...
They've got the pedigree.
Previous.
Yeah.
They've got the pedigree. We could lure them back. We could lure them back with bags of money.
All that Dark Universe cash.
They would for sure be an option. We could talk to Julie Plec. We could talk to Karina McKenzie. We have a lot of options here. We have people we can go to.
I think it's good because at first I was like, well, the thing about Yellow Jackets is that is a show about, this all-female ensemble. Would they want to come over and do something like The Covenant with these male witches? But we need the female gaze on this. I think one of the things we can fix is that instead of having this be this all-male hunky cast, but written by men trying to write what they think women want and stuff, you get the female gaze in here, and we get them to be
100%
sexy.
We
and
100%
cool.
need a diverse writers' room.
Yes.
We need representation in here. We need to mix it up. Right now, part of the reason it's so bad and why the light misogyny just permeates through is it's about 5 rich white dudes in private school. And I think part of what I would really love to do with it, if it were me, which it is right now,
it is. That's right.
Is really lean into that ambiguity, because having rewatched it 3 times in 3 days, it is very ambiguous. Are these good guys or bad guys? We don't know. They're not running out using their powers to save the world. They're not Buffy. They're not throwing themselves in front of danger. They're flipping up girls' skirts and fixing their windscreens.
Yeah.
I want to see this.
If we want to talk about the whole rich white guy thing, it's never called into question whether or not they deserve to have these powers. It's just
and how they got their money in the first place, people.
It's just, we were born into this, it's this responsibility. We got to make sure we don't get too hooked on it.
Yeah.
It goes without saying that, yes, these are my powers, and I will have them when I turn 18, kind of like access to a trust or something like that.
The thing about a lot of things where someone is given powers like that, I feel like that's a good start for a form of coming of age story, this kind of feels like a coming of age story where no one comes of age. Like no one actually grows.
No one learns anything.
Yeah.
No one learns anything in the Covenant. That's my favorite thing about it. Even all the way through, they're just constantly like, don't use, it's addictive.
Yeah.
Look at your dad. He's turned into the crypt keeper. Don't do it. And then what does he do at the end? He immediately uses his magic to fix his windshield. Like, to fix your windshield in front of people, in front of firemen, in front of, like, what the? He learned nothing. So I'm so angry about it. I also think there's like a real Black Panther vibe, right? Like,
wait,
let's look
explain
at
that.
Sebastian Stan. Look at who nominated for an Oscar 19 years too late. But like, look at his character. Like, we don't really play enough with that, but it's like he was adopted. He didn't know he was a witch. Like, his ancestor was, to all intents and purposes, impregnated by a succubus in her dreams against her will. Like, his heritage is very dark. He didn't know where he came from. He came to his power alone, afraid. He didn't know where any of it is. Like, in his mind, he's the Michael B. Jordan character. You know, he's righteous in his outrage. Like, he's trying to take back what's his. He never had these three brothers that he grew up like Caleb did. He didn't grow up knowing of his heritage and on all of this wonderful legacy that they seem to believe that they have, when I'm like, I don't know, man, look at your dad. I'd like to see the other guys' dads too. I would like to see the other three fellas' parents
Yeah, not
and the
mentioned.
families.
Even no mention of them at
No,
all.
where's the Council of Elders here? Like, we have so much world to play
the
with
thing.
and so much ambiguity to lean into. There's just, it's beautiful.
Well, here's where I think we have an opportunity where I feel like maybe for this pilot movie, you know, we start with, like these are these four guys who have been gifted these powers and they don't really question it. And they're not thinking about like, oh, do we do something good with it? They're just like, oh, we're the fucking hot shit on campus. And we're going to like, you know, use it to impress girls or like, you know, enrich ourselves. And then all of a sudden we get this interloper from the outside who fucks their shit up. And I think our main character, Caleb, that can be kind of a wake-up call for him for the rest of the season, where he's like, after their little safe bubble of just like, oh yeah, this is just a fun, cool thing that we have been given, he's like, well, oh shit, maybe we should like not go down that path. Like he kind of sees like the dark side of it, and he has this sort of like awakening and almost becomes like Tony in West Side Story, where like the rest of the Jets are like, you know, like, hey, come, like they're still like children in a way, you know, like they're still like wrapped up in themselves. And he's like, look, man, like I've seen like the dark side of this, and I don't really, and for the rest of the season, we have kind of tension between him and the rest of the group, right? Where like, he's pulling away from Pogue, and Pogue is like, come on, man, we used to have fun. He's like, I don't know, I feel like I need to know more about my family, and like maybe there's something good we could do with these powers. Like, are there others like us out there we don't know about?
There's a way to expand. I'm going to double down on the West Side Story of it all. Okay, so the thing that gets Tony, well, some singing and dancing would be awesome. If this would be a musical, we are for it. But if in West Side Story, what gets Tony to have his little sort of emotional adolescence is his love for Maria, as immature as the love itself is. Again, Romeo and Juliet, love at first sight, yada, yada. But he finds something to care about other than his boys, who has a very different point of view than he has, and helps him to recontextualize the world in which he lives. He doesn't want to be part of this fight anymore. He wants to just live his life in peace, right? So in the movie we have, there's the barely explored class difference between Caleb and his new girlfriend, who is a public school kid who got here by means they never fully explain, but they make a big deal at the beginning of the movie that Sarah came here from a Boston public, right? Which they say because at the time Boston Public was a hit TV show on ABC. But it's
they mean she acted in the show.
Yeah, she was on the show. Yeah. A show that had a ton of people who did a Star Trek on it. I mean, more every year.
We're not pitching Boston Public.
And Boston Legal is also okay. But so we have the idea where you can have somebody. Not that we haven't already played with this in our Wolfman, right? But the idea of you have somebody who takes his power and his privilege for granted, right? In Caleb. And part of what matures him into being willing to look at the world in a new way is not just seeing someone abuse that power, but be able to see that abuse through the lens of someone who is powerless against it, not just in the magical sense, but in the case of social currency, right?
True.
So she's not only not magic, she's not rich. And we can play so much with we don't have to throw away the magic as drugs thing, but magic as wealth is a thing that we've also played with a little bit in our universe that I think that we can dig in really deep here.
Yeah.
Oh, 100%. The possibilities to go into privilege across the spectrum with this and to look at what they are entitled to, what they are born with versus what other people are entitled to and born with. And you get that with the villain and with the rest of the cast, right? Like, we get to really play around with it, and who does and doesn't want to give it up and who does and doesn't think it should be shared. Like, I don't know if that's relevant right now, but I think it might be.
What?
And
I'm doing it in a Muppet voice so that people don't come for me, but that's how you know I'm afraid.
the other TV show I sort of thought about with this movie was Justified, because that also has a first episode that feels like a movie that focuses on this villain Boyd Crowder, who then doesn't appear much for the rest of the season, but ends up being sort of the big bad of the show. And I think we can stick with that with, what's his name? Chase? Is that who Sebastian Stan is?
Chase
Yes.
Sebastian Stan.
Yes, Chase
So-
Collins.
He disappears mysteriously at the end of this pilot. And then for the rest of season 1, we can do our kind of monster of the week things, right? And let the tension between Caleb and the rest of the Covenant, those tensions sort of grow until the season finale when Chase returns. And then at that point, the Covenant will be at their lowest point. And maybe that was even his plan, was to split up the Covenant, you know, like maybe
Right,
he's been
I feel like
influencing
that's
things
together.
in
in
the
the
background.
movie,
Yeah.
but it's not, right?
Yes.
I feel like they wanted to do that in the movie when they imply that it's Reed.
Yes.
And then Chase is this dorky, nerdy guy who's like, I'll see the Brad Pitt movie. But it's just, they just do it so poorly.
Yeah.
I love this film. I'm so sorry.
I'm sorry, I'm just losing my mind that one of the first things they establish in the movie is that there's certain challenges that are too hard for anything to take care of by themselves, right? And so
Yes.
you would think that in the end of the movie, the way
They'd
that they
have to do it
triumph
together.
over the bad guy
Nope.
who's more powerful than any of them is to work as a team. But
Absolutely
the other
not.
brothers
Absolutely
are not
not.
even at the climax of the movie. They're at the...
One of them's in a coma.
Yeah, one
Two of them are a dance.
The other one, they don't serve any...
I think we have to change
Lindsey,
that.
I know we can do better. I know you can do
I
better,
know.
and we're going to be happy
I know
to help.
we can.
I think we changed that for the pilot. I think it's important for us to establish in this pilot that the way they defeat Chase is by pooling their powers together. Because then we can reveal at the end of season 1 that Chase has been subtly influencing things to try to continue driving them apart so that they can't do that. And so at the end of the season, in like your penultimate, episode 11 of 12 or whatever, there is our big final blow up, and the 4 of them won't fucking talk to each other. And then Chase reappears because, he knows, okay, they're weaker now. Now I can make my move and pick them off one by one.
If we want, we can play this that instead of the climax of this movie takes place when Caleb turns 18 and ascends. I feel like that's something we can draw out for the season, where Chase initially is just trying to get his claws in. But his real plan is that at the time of the season finale, whenever Caleb's actual 18th birthday is going to be, that's when he's going to pounce. And so he wants to try and time it out so that he's at his weakest right when he's about to ascend.
And
Right.
the season finale takes place at the fall ball.
Yes.
Okay, so this is
we
one
love
of those
we love
shorts.
a prom moment. We love an end of.
Yeah, like it has to happen at the dance. That's the missed opportunity, right? Like, or maybe it's a spring fling. I don't know if we want to draw out the timeline. We go from fall ball to
Regardless,
spring
I mean,
fling.
it's got to
spring
happen
fling.
at a dance. It's
Yeah.
YA rules. Like, it needs to
Exactly.
happen where Buffy can be there with her umbrella. Like, we need to do this properly. But yeah, and I also think like there's ways we can do it. Where obviously we're gonna have to reveal that he is a 5th son of Ipswich, or at least that he is a witch. But maybe we don't need to reveal that he stole his dad's power and killed him. We keep that card to ourselves till the end because they're like, well, he's not more powerful than us, but it's like, surprise, yes, he is, because he murdered his dad, which, casts him in an even darker shadow across his character when he comes back to us at the end. And maybe that's why they haven't been able to sense him and why he's been able to influence them in this way that they couldn't see before, because we can make up anything because they established nothing.
Ooh, but also we're allowed to make whatever changes we like. Lindsey, what else would you like to do to make the Covenant good?
I would like to recast it, but not go back in time and use all the same Boise's. And the main thing I really want to do is pull out the female characters.
Yes.
Like, I think it is such a missed opportunity, which is why I opened with, who is this for? Because if it's for women, and look at a show like all of the teeny CW shows that we think of as being teeny shows, they're actually not. They were created for a primary audience of late teen, early 20-year-olds, but their secondary target audience is always women 35 plus.
Yeah.
Like, that is on purpose. So you do need to put that in there because it's a huge audience that is available to us, especially with Peacock. We know Peacock, I'm pitching to the network now. It's like, you've got your Real Housewives, ladies. Like, you've got that audience. Let's give them this. They need something else to watch after Real Housewives of Beverly Hills is finished. So we definitely need to do more work with our female audience. We have Caleb's mom, who is, I enjoy Evelyn Danvers. I enjoy a drunk in a nightgown, a touch, Oedipal, like whatever you need. I don't hate it, but I think that's such a big juicy role for someone. She is not that old. They say that his dad is 44, I believe, when we meet the hooked-hand one. So presumably his mom is around the same age because she said they met when they were
like juniors in high school or something. Yeah.
So they would have been 15, 16, 17 when they met. So we've got to be thinking she's around the same age.
But yeah, it's the Riverdale thing, right? There's as much drama with the parents as there is with the kids, right? Like,
exactly. I want to see everyone's family. I want to see the Danvers family, the Collins family, the Parry family, the Sims family, the Garwin family. I want to see all of these elder families. It's a complicated role. Like, she's pretending her husband is dead, right? Outwardly, the world thinks that he's dead, but she knows he's actually hidden away in the old house from the original colony. Like, she has a lot to deal with. Her son is on the precipice of absorbing all this power and potentially going the same way. No wonder she fancies a martini at 5 o'clock. Like, you can see how she got there. She seemingly has no support system at all. So I love that for her, but I want to build out that world in the adults to begin with, and then we move on to the girls in school.
Because the crossover there, I think, is you do not even get a mention of any of the female blood relatives of these guys who are like textually isolated from this power. Like, it always goes to the firstborn male every time. How much does it suck to be a firstborn girl in this family?
Yeah.
A lot.
Yeah. How much does it suck to not identify as a male or a female in this world? Like, when you're like, wait, what does that mean for me?
Yeah,
like, where does that go?
What are the gender implications on that on a non-binary level, right? There's a lot to explore there.
We got to have an NB in the Covenant. But yeah, because I think our four are maybe our main characters, but in a series, we can have them be a microcosm of the fact that this entire town is sort of built on these 4 dynasties, right? Like, these families. And so when this one person, Chase, comes in and, pulls out the Jenga block on the Covenant, it also, like, the dynasties start to fall, right? Like, there's the ripple effect can go up to the parents, to the siblings, to the grandparents, like, we can explore the implications on the entire town of Ipswich, right? Like, in this sort of extended, runway that we have to play with. And yeah, that leaves room for sisters, for a non-binary person.
Well, yeah, we should definitely also have more than one person of color in the entire show. This is an incredibly white movie.
Yeah, it's super white. It's super straight. and ask no more questions.
Yeah.
Like, that is literally what they said when they delivered it. They were like, is there anything we need to know about this? And they said, no. It looks like you, sir, that I'm handing the file over to.
Oh,
Like,
great.
don't worry about
then
it.
we'll put it in theaters instead of on the CW. An idea I also had, because we were talking about the one Covenant guy who doesn't do anything. What's his...
Tyler.
Tyler, yeah.
Here's my idea for an end of season twist, is that, we can develop him a little bit more or whatever, but at the end, what if it's revealed that, like, for the past episode or two, Chase actually returned and killed him first and took his power, and he's been a Darkling. That they've been seeing Tyler, but he hasn't been alive. He's been an omen. He's been this dark omen of Chase's return because he was killed by Chase.
Hey, bro, you don't really look like yourself. You kind of look like a dark omen.
Yeah.
You've got a real dark ominousness.
Did you get your
right
coffee
now.
this morning? Have you eaten enough protein?
Hey, buddy.
See, I was just
you
going to
haven't
say,
been
what if he
benching
was
with us.
in league with Chase?
We could also
and he
make him
was
a
the one
spy,
that had
yeah.
secretly invited him, but
could be both.
you went so far.
but then we
it could
can-
be both.
we can have
he could have been secretly in league with him, and then he gets his own.
That's
And it's like, well,
true.
that's what you get for being secretly in league with the bad guy.
That's actually not bad. Make it sort of a morality tale of, like, he's been...
Because it's always the quiet one, right?
Yeah. And now Chase, by the end of the season, Chase doesn't need him anymore. Chase has been breaking apart the Covenant through his influence with Tyler. At the end, everything's set up. He's like, I don't need you anymore, but I do need your magic. Kills him. Tyler appears to the rest of the Covenant as a Darkling to warn them. And then we make our spin-off series, The Darkling Diaries. That stars Tyler.
I'm so excited. I'm so excited for your Darklings. I love this.
The Darklings is too rich of a vein to not
I
take
think
advantage
you just
of.
like the word Darkling.
Yes.
And I don't blame you. I like
Darkling.
it too.
We have our animated series, Darkling Duck.
We just had Daniel Kibblesmith on the show.
That's right.
He's writing the Darkwing Duck comic.
He can do Darkling Duck for us. Yeah.
So, Lindsay, you were talking about you want to make sure we don't want to reuse the cast. Now, a weakness of ours, particularly me and Dalton, is that we don't often know a lot of young actors to cast in things. Do
It's
you
hard.
have
It's
thoughts
very
about
hard.
this? About people? Do you have a lead in mind?
I did. Well, when I was casting, I was thinking a bigger budget. So I'm going to preface this by saying we're taking this into the network being like, this type. And then they are going to take the name and like just change some of the consonants. So it's a Tim Holland. That's who we've got the non union equivalent.
No, don't worry. This is the Dark Universe.
We've got loads of money.
We have an infinite budget. So it's like I still feel like for the pilot at least, I was leaning towards a David Lynch because I think we could do some fun Twin Peaks vibes in this. But if for some reason he weren't available to return to us from the grave, I feel like we have Denis Villeneuve's The Covenant.
Oh, wow.
Because I need someone to work on the visuals of this universe.
Yeah.
I need someone to work on the bubble, like the bubble powers.
Someone who can...
Someone needs
who can
to work
world
on
build.
this.
Yeah.
But then in a visual way, like we know that he's able to, like, Duna's being the obvious example of being able to take some weird visual ideas. And of course, I do acknowledge that there are people whose biggest gripe with the Dune movies is that they do not look weird enough. But I think I'm a Villeneuve guy. I think that's a great choice. It'd be really interesting. Yeah. And again, we have a lot of money. I think we've seen him
handle a mass universe. We've seen him handle multiple storylines, multiple timelines. I think he would be a great person to set this up for us.
Yes.
Do the pilot and then bid adieu and
come back for
do
season
whatever,
finales,
hand
maybe.
it over. Yeah, exactly. Whenever he wants to come back. He's an executive producer. He's getting a check.
Yeah,
it's fine. He would be a delight, and I think he would enjoy it. I was very torn because I really do think there's a lot to talk about, like possibility of mixing up representation in the cast, and the Black Panther storyline really did speak to me. I'm not the right person to tell that story as this showrunner, but I think that's something on the table that we take it in.
Well, that's why we have a diverse writers room.
I'm also hiring myself, but I gotta get that WGA membership somehow. So I think we just go star-studded, almost stunt casting for our two leads, and I think we go with Tom Holland for Caleb Danvers and we get Zendaya in to play Sarah.
Wow.
I think we just go for it.
They might have
and
fun doing
if
this
you
series
put
together.
Zendaya in any role, she elevates.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So she's already made Sarah 1,000 times more interesting than she is.
Well, and also that does, I think, deepen if the whole thing is like he's rich, he has magic, and she's public school, doesn't have magic. The race dynamic also will play in there as well, that like he's white, rich, and a magic user. She's black from a public school, doesn't have the same things he has. Like it really does deepen his sudden empathy awakening that he has.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It's like what they've done with Interview with the Vampire. Like
Yes.
the way they've done it over there, they've done it so wonderfully. It works so great. I think there's a lot you can do with that if you get the right people in to do it well. I think that would be really fun. And then I think if you're doing Tom Holland for Caleb, who I like, who's not quite as macho, but he's still like, we know he can be that physical character. We've seen him do Spider-Man. We haven't seen his action movies, but I know he's done some. I love.
He's miscast
makes
in
the
Uncharted,
effort.
but that movie is kind of bonkers in a way that I enjoy.
Yeah, I like that he got to do a fun. It's like this one's for you. So I think if we're gonna do Tom for Caleb, I think we have to go mirror this, and we just go straight for Timmy Tim for Chase Collins. I think we get Chalamet in, and we say.
Do we have
Funhouse mirror this?
Do we have Zendaya and Chalamet in the
They're
Dark
both
Universe?
available.
Really? We haven't.
We
I thought
discussed
we had
Zendaya back when we did Dracula's Daughter, but we did not cast her.
We went with Janelle Monáe,
and we've never used Timmy Chalamet.
Fair.
Okay. Well, then, yeah, we are really
I think
going...
this is a fun role for him.
Yeah.
Get your teeth into it, and it's not too demanding on his schedule. So I think we can get him. I think he'll be cool. I think we say you come do the pilot, obviously, and then it's just like we pick you up at the end.
Yeah, I do think...
But wouldn't you love to see him ham it up?
Oh, yeah.
Having the two of them opposite each other as mirror images, as the good and evil version of the same guy, that is very compelling. And I also think that just in casting them and with your selection of like producer and like producing director, we have immediately changed the perception of what this show is going to be. Because if you say they're making a show based on the 2006 movie, The Covenant, the first question would be, why? And the second thing that you would think is, I guess that's going to be, I don't know, I miss Supernatural. It was on forever and now it's not. I'll watch that. It's like, oh, no. No disrespect to Supernatural, but this is something different. And we don't really have one of those in our Dark Universe. We don't have like kind of like a prestige supernatural drama.
That's the thing. Teen Wolf was our 22 episode a season.
Yeah, that was very much our Teen Wolf.
Yeah, that was but
and I love Teen Wolf, don't get me wrong. I love that show.
This brings us to this changes the game because now we're talking 8 episode seasons that come out once every 3 years because we have to get everyone's schedules, aligned, and it's more expensive. We're doing the Marvel Disney Plus thing now where it's like, you get your 8 episode season. And then a few years from now, whenever we can get all this talent together, you'll get a season 2. Even like Severance,
and I think we might have the Yellow Jackets people back on the phone now.
Excellent.
I think we might be able to get a meeting now.
There we go.
So I like them for our big 3.
Yeah.
To round out the 4-5 Sons of Ipswich, I have got Justice Smith in for Pogue.
Okay.
Parry, Detective Pokemon fame.
Yes.
We have cast Justice Smith previously in Dark Girl.
Okay.
He was just in Dark Girl.
He was in Dark Girl.
That's all right. We'll do a Justice Smith type, right?
Yeah.
We're taking it to the casting directors.
Yeah, we'll Chris Pine him if we have to, but otherwise we're going to look for a Justice Smith type. Just a solid, reliable best friend who is able to meet a lot of emotional demands on that character. Because my biggest problem with Pogue in the movie is he's just very one-dimensional, right? It's just Taylor Kitsch, not even trying not to do a Canadian accent, not even attempting. He's like, ooh, sorry about that. I'm like, no, Taylor, no. Toby Hemingway is British, and he's doing better. But all he does is ride his motorbike, get angry, and tell his girlfriend what to do. So I am looking for a more nuanced portrayal of a modern man. I also love, again, that we're going for a non-white character here that will, again, lend something. And I think that gives him a lot to play with, that he is a more privileged non-white character. So where does that put him in alignment with our other characters in this universe?
Pogue has to be like the character between worlds, right? He's like Mike Feist in West Side Story, where it's got to be like he's Caleb's best friend, but he's not on the same journey Caleb is, like he still wants to hang out with Reed and Tyler and just fuck around and fix the windshield, ride his motorcycle and get mad at his girlfriend,
and blow up skirts. Yeah. And guess that a girl has never worn panties since she was 12 years old.
I was just thinking when we're watching this, movie where this is a movie where we have a jealous boyfriend who's like, stay away from that guy. And he's right. That's fucked.
Aww. I love that. The romance writer in me loves that. Like, he's the touch her or die guy, like touch her and die, not or die. We don't want that. We don't want him to touch her. Romance tropes, we love that. We love a guy, we love a protective hero. So we enjoy that. The Chase Crawford role is hard because who would want it? But now we've made it more nuanced. Now we've mixed it up a bit. I think that leaves us more open. I had liked Michael Cimino from Love, Victor.
I don't know.
Because I love Love, Victor.
Let me look at my chat. What's his name?
But Michael Cimino is Cimino. And I looked up how to say it, so I believe that is correct.
He's cute.
That he's a sweetie. Yeah. And I think what we need for this role is a sweetie. Especially if he's going to be...
the wrong guy, I think. Wait, no, this guy. Okay,
yes, there's also an older man who died by that name recently.
It's not that one.
It's the one who's alive.
It's the one who's alive.
He's got a real boy band look.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I think if he's going to be our double agent also.
Yes.
And the younger brother.
We need him to be very sweet. Yes, he's the sweeter, younger, more innocent character.
Me and him have similar facial hairstyles.
Uh-huh.
We basically kind of look
We're basically the same.
We're basically twins.
the same. Look basically exactly the same, Dalton.
Yeah.
We might shave him down. We might go for more of a Love Victor look.
Yeah.
But that's for us to talk to the costume designer and the production designer about. Like, we'll figure that out. And then for Reed, I think is really fun because Reed is chewing the scenery from the beginning. I mean, just snapping his towel on people's bare asses and shouting, say my name. Like, I have one person in mind for that, and it's Ncuti Gatwa, if he's available.
Oh, damn it. I've already got Ncuti Gatwa.
No,
That's a great pick,
mine.
but he's kind of important.
I'm pulling British privilege.
But he can pull double duty because he's an angel, and they have different rules.
That's true.
He plays an angel in our dark universe.
You know what, though? We didn't get to use a lot of Ncuti. I'm fine with double casting Ncuti Gatwa.
Yeah.
As a matter of fact, maybe Ncuti Gatwa, if we hadn't established that Ncuti Gatwa has looked like that since 1931, I would say Ncuti Gatwa just saw that guy and said, that's a good look. I'll look like that.
Wait,
that's what Sahakwiel did, our angel.
Can we just make it so that part of Reed's backstory that he discovers is that he is the child of a witch and an angel?
Yes.
Yeah, great.
Absolutely. That's why he has the white blonde hair, because he's keeping the Justin Bieber hair.
Yes.
He's keeping the Draco.
Okay.
Yeah, and that he is actually the son of Sahakwiel.
Yeah.
And looks identical to him.
Right, because we've established that Nephilim look exactly the same every time they're born. Because,
exactly.
Okay, so just to fill in a little backstory here, Lindsay, Dalton threw me a curveball in one of their scripts that Evelyn O'Connell from the 90s Mummy movies was still alive in the 2020s and looks like Rachel Weisz does now, and left it to me to figure out how that happened. And my solution was that she's actually, you know how she reincarnates in those movies? She actually is, she's part angel, and their souls reincarnate where other ones don't have an afterlife because we don't have a nice afterlife. We only have hell. Everyone goes there and it sucks. So
sounds about right.
So we've now established the idea that we have people who every generation looks like identical to the previous one and has a connection to magic that would uniquify that character from the rest of the cast. Boom! I love to solve problems.
It's a dark universe tie-in, right? It ties it to our larger universe.
And we haven't been making enough use of our angels, really.
And then it gives Reed a journey to go on, right? Because Caleb's got his journey. Pogue's got a journey as sort of the man in between who has to ride the balance between the homies and Caleb. Tyler's going to get killed and turn into Darkling Duck. And then Reed's whole thing is that he's an asshole, but then discovers this thing about his lineage that he's like, wait, how am I an angel? I'm a dick. Like, and now that feels like a lot to live up to.
Right, but it means that he has the potential, right? Because angels in our universe demons aren't fallen angels. Angels are risen demons who decide they want to fight for good. This complicates things for him.
Reed has to grow up now to fulfill his role.
Because maybe he's one of those guys who's just like, I've always been an asshole. My dad was an asshole, right? And this is just how I behave.
Especially long line of assholes.
Yes. When you're rich, especially, you can just get away with being an asshole, and you just think that's a personality, right?
And then in season 2, he starts accessing his past lives and gains the knowledge of all of the people he has been before. And
that gives us the possibility of getting to directly, first person from one of our lead's eyes, look at the legacy of this town through his predecessors.
Yes.
So it's not just a flashback. He can relive it.
He can relive like their grandparents' glory days when they were their age, you know?
Right. And what if something happens when he's reliving it and all 4/potentially 5 sons of Ipswich are together and they actually get sucked into the past? What if they get pulled in through the magic?
Time travel
we
fun.
don't know how it's going to, right? We don't know how it's going to manifest all the way through because we haven't read the Book of Damnation.
That's right. There's at least 16 chapters with which we are not familiar.
Yes.
And even though we have been warned not to use magic when we don't have to, we are only to lift the book with our minds because there is no physical prop and it's just a CGI thing and we can't touch it.
And someone forgot to bring it that day.
Maybe.
But they had the time to go down and light all those candles.
Yes.
Who lit the candles? Whose job is it to light the candles? Because that might be a villain backstory for Tyler.
He's the youngest and they make him light all the candles every time they go down there.
And then they wonder why he threw his lot in with Chase. Because I had to light 500 candles.
I actually think a good season 2 arc would be Caleb and Pogue read from a forbidden chapter of the Book of Damnation that takes them back, that sucks them back to that time, and Reed has to go after them by accessing his past life. And then we do a whole season in the past, in like the early days of Ipswich. You go back to when they were still burning the witches and stuff.
And
you
so
do like,
they don't have the social capital that they have.
Yes, they don't have the money. They don't have the social capital. They get to experience the persecution that their forefathers did, you know?
And maybe they discover that a lot of what they learned about their past is a lie.
Gasp. But and they also have the opportunity to save Goody Pope. But if they save Goody Pope, what does that do to that line? You know, does that cut off that whole line?
I forgot about the name Goody Pope.
A really good
Goody Pope
paradox problem
Agnes
where
Goody Pope.
They could change it so that that line goes differently, right? But then there's like, there's the whole question, you know, the classic time travel paradox.
Yeah, have they Back to the Future it when they get back to the present?
Yeah.
Like, what have they done?
And where does Bordy Becklin fit in? We'll find a place for Bordy Becklin. But in the meantime,
Bordy's just running things. That's actually just running the whole show.
Yes, and Bordy is behind it all. Bordy is played by Sebastian Stan in our reboot. So
a nice nod back.
Yes.
A nice nod back.
Well, we got to that thing
cameo.
where one of the original cast members plays a parent of one of the new cast members.
Yeah. Well, I was thinking he could be like the provost of the academy, right? Like,
who's a real dick?
Yeah.
Who's just a real dick. Like, what an asshole. So this rich kid joined our school and you need to be nice to him. And also I heard you were maybe in a fight, but like, it's nothing to do with me. It wasn't at school. I don't know. I had some issues with the provost. I really took issue with the fact that he has that framed photo of himself playing football in high school behind him, but visible so you can see it. He wants you to know that he used to be a big man on campus. Like, he needs you to know that. I'm like, well, you ended up provost in Ipswich. So
in our Sebastian Stan will have a framed photo of himself in the Covenant in 2006, which completely breaks the universe.
Doing the flips. Apparently he did all of his own stunts.
Well, good for him.
And there were like a lot of stunts.
Yeah, maybe if the Covenant hadn't happened, he never would have landed the Winter Soldier.
That's right.
God, can you imagine?
Yeah, a much darker timeline even than our own.
Yes. Like, at least in our timeline, we have Sebastian Stan's career. And that's the one thing I'm holding on to.
Yes, everyone listening to this, see a different man. I think The Apprentice is good too, but a different man, that should have been the one, man.
Yeah,
that should have been the statue.
Just can't believe he wasn't nominated for this.
If
will
we
be.
were, they often say the Oscars are not really awarding best actor or best costumes. It's most acting or most costumes. Sebastian Stan did the most acting in this movie, and he should have been acknowledged for that.
Mm-hmm.
He takes it. Honestly, he and Stephen Strait both do a really good job with what they're given.
That's true.
I feel like all I keep doing is shitting on it, and I love it. But
Stephen Strait does his wonderful thing.
On that third watch today, it really brought it into focus. But those two in particular are acting their asses off. Like, Stephen Strait is trying so hard to elevate every word that he is given. Same with Sebastian Stan. Like, the way his character switches from the beginning of the movie to the second half of the movie, like when he comes out as the villain, it's good. It's good. Everyone else just showed up and got their lines on the day. But those two, they read their script the night before.
They're doing their
jobs.
jobs.
I think they get credit for that.
Yes, they have taken notes. They have done that actor thing, which most serious actors do, which is reading every line with every possible enunciation and figuring out what's the one that no one's ever done before. And with Stephen Strait adding
Witchy.
on top,
Witchy.
Witchy?
Witchy. Like, he's tried so many of them, like, that's the one.
But with
That's
Stephen
the one.
Strait, he's done, on top of that, he's adding his extra flavor of the sexy guy thing, which is having really sad eyes, but also never opening his mouth all the way, no matter how much he's talking.
Yeah.
He's just got to be like this.
So many teeth, though. Like,
can't
every
let
time
that
he does
happen.
open his mouth, there's a lot of teeth. Like, I'm just like, they're very straight. They're in a very straight line. I'd like to talk to his dentist.
That's why they call
it's
him
very
that.
impressive. Yeah.
Well, I think we have a solid at least season and a half of TV here. We have managed to take all the fertile earth that exists in the Covenant and plant our seeds, and now we have a rich harvest.
Would it help you to know, sorry that I'm interrupting, this is so rude when you're clearly
Go
wrapping
ahead.
up because I'll be talking to you 4 hours, but I'd had cast a Star Trek.
Oh,
I had also cast a
yeah.
Star Trek.
I'm sorry. Do you have more?
First of all,
I don't want to cut you off.
You
if
never,
have more
you never have
casting.
to apologize
No.
for interrupting us. We jump in a lot.
Yeah.
And you are our guest, our honored guest. Secondly, please share your Star Trek.
Well, I just really wanted to cast the Danvers family and Gorman
Oh, okay. Yeah.
because I'm a big Gorman fan. Like, I think Gorman the caretaker is underrated. He shoots at Caleb for bringing a girl.
Talk about a character
Like-
who does not get enough to do in the movie.
I don't remember this character.
He's the caretaker.
He's the caretaker of his dad. He is at the colony house. He's magical. Well, I really thought we could get a good Gorman out of Patrick Stewart.
Oh, if we're spending
go.
the money, then absolutely.
Yeah.
Let's
Right?
let him
It's
bring
not-
this
he's
to
not in it a
Shakespearean
ton.
heights.
But I want to see that Shakespearean just drama brought to that role. I want to see it. And I think also with Denis Villeneuve in mind, let's get Dave Bautista in to play his dad.
Yeah. Under
I know
a
it's
lot
a lot
of makeup.
of
It's an opportunity for him to
makeup.
wear tiny glasses.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. And who's to say we won't expand that role, you know?
Right.
So I think Dave is one of the greatest character actors of our time, plus wrestling.
Absolutely.
So
We're going to give him what he
love
wants. We're going to give him what he
You're gonna
wants.
give him
which
what
is a
he
role
wants.
in this. We have cast Dave Bautista previously
As
in our
Scott
Scott Pilgrim
Pilgrim.
as Scott Pilgrim.
Oh, okay.
Thank you too.
That might be, well,
But
I mean, in that
he'll
case,
be
I'll
under
take John
so
Cena.
much. He'll be
I mean,
under so much makeup here that
Yeah.
it won't matter.
It doesn't
It's
matter.
true.
No one's going to be
It's
like,
true.
isn't that Scott Pilgrim? For many reasons, but mostly because he's underneath all that makeup.
Yes.
Ideally for Evelyn, and I'm sure you're going to tell me she's taken, but I would love to see an Anne Hathaway in this role.
I don't think Anne Hathaway is taken.
Isn't
Is
she in the
not?
Ghost and Mrs.
Because do
Muir?
you not think Anne Hathaway would
she
do
wasn't?
a grand job of swanning around that house with a martini in her hand and swishing her hair around and looking kind of like she wants to fuck her son?
I think you're right. She isn't. She is our
I
Mrs.
believe
Muir,
that
isn't
Magnolia made her Mrs. Muir. Oh, by the way, we're recording this on Magnolia's birthday. Happy birthday,
she?
Magnolia.
Happy birthday, Magnolia.
Happy birthday.
Um, Now, Lindsay, Magnolia clearly stole your thunder on several fronts. First of all, taking the Ghost and Mrs. Muir to
It's
begin
fine.
with.
I like to know that I'm not alone in this world,
Yeah.
so I feel good about it.
You two should be friends.
Yes, Lucy Muir.
I feel like we are, so I love this. Yeah.
But an Anne Hathaway type. I think you're right. But yes, that is definitely who we'd be.
You know, we
going
could do
with.
an Emily Blunt.
Wait,
we
that's
could
true.
do
We have
Emily
not
Blunt
cast
would be
Emily
great.
Blunt yet. Yeah.
Doing Emily Blunt would be good at this. I feel like even maybe an Aubrey Plaza might be good at this.
She's taken.
She is?
She could bring
Oh, yes,
something.
yes.
Okay, well,
Early
Emily's
days.
back on the table. Don't tell her. Don't tell her she was the second, potentially third call. She won't
Yeah.
like that.
No.
She won't like that at all. But I think, maybe John could come in and direct an episode.
Oh yeah. Why not?
She could bring the family.
I think
You
Sure,
know,
we need some of that CIA money.
We really
Yes.
have turned the CW type movie into a Shakespearean drama. Like with the talent we've got and Villeneuve on board, like this and like expanding it to be about like the dynasty of witch houses that built this town. This is definitely turning into more of a big, rich historical family drama.
Yeah, this is really like
with hot guys. With hot
we
people.
can't leave out the hot people. But the important, like, I think this is interesting in that it feels like the recipe that we're making here is legitimately not something I think is currently on television. Like, that's kind of exciting. And the test always on this show is how badly do we want to watch the thing we're talking about? I'm very curious about this adaptation of a pretty bad movie that
Can I pique your interest further?
Yes.
We keep the swimming. We keep the
I
swimming.
have to swim. First of all, you got
There we go.
sports create stakes in stories, a reason for characters to get together, and most importantly, a reason for them to take most of their clothes off.
Yeah.
We got
There
to
we go.
sell those subscriptions.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Let's
then
make the Puritans mad.
it's more for
It's good buzz for us.
the Covenant to fight about, because it's like, Caleb, you're not showing up to practice, and now we're gonna lose in the swim meet because you're hanging out with your hot girlfriend.
Right,
you
because
know?
some episodes have to have sort of silly stakes or little high school stakes. Like
Yeah.
we have to have
Yeah, they do.
I don't have a date to the dance type stakes, subplots, and sometimes we have to have a so-and-so's getting better at freestyle than me, guys. I gotta really pump it up. I'm tempted to use my powers to be better at freestyle, but I gotta resist the urge so I don't get hooked.
Although remember, we only have 8 episodes with this cast. We gotta really keep things moving.
Okay, all right.
It's a B plot. It's a B
Yes,
plot. It's
it'll
fine.
be a B plot,
Keep
yeah.
it.
All right. Any
Yeah.
final thoughts you want to add to this really, at this point, very compelling pitch, Lindsay?
Yeah, do you have any other casts that we didn't get to or anything like that?
There were a couple of people I was thinking we could do for Aaron Abbott, who is the dickhead, basically, his role. And my favorite thing about Chase Crawford being in this, I should have said, is he says the word dickhead, which is great because it also just doesn't sit right with the rest of the movie. He's like, he was being a dickhead. And it's like, it's the first time he's ever said it. And I loved it.
He says it as 2 words.
It's like he just got
not
the script
one.
and he was like, what's a dickhead? And it's like, oh, he thinks it's 2 words. But I thought maybe we could bring in a Ross Lynch for that. Who was in Sabrina and now is doing a pop star thing, but he kind of looks like a dirtbag.
Oh,
no,
yeah,
I can see
and I
that.
say
for
that with
sure.
love,
For
right?
sure.
We could
These
do a
are
Ross
all,
Lynch.
the young actors are all people that Dalton is just bringing up on their screen so I can look over it.
Yes, I'm
Yeah,
I'm
well,
Googling
it's
these
hard
people.
because Young Hollywood is a dearth, it turns out, or they were all in Euphoria, and
here's-
they're all now 45, and I think we really have to cap out 35 when we're trying to
Absolutely.
cast 18-year-olds. I think that's the CW way.
Thank you so much
You
for
know?
doing the homework. This
Yes.
really helps.
I do try.
When you Google
do try.
when you Google Ross Lynch, a lot of shirtless photos come up. So I
Yeah,
think
that's
yeah,
our-
Yes,
that's
and
our
that's
guy.
why I think he would be great in that role. I considered him for one of the Sons of Ipswich, but I think more dirtbaggery.
Yeah.
I think he could do Chase if pushed, but let's try Timmy first.
Sure.
or Reed potentially.
Like, let's call him first.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
I like what we've done with Reed.
Oh, yeah,
now.
we got the whole
we have to
angel
keep the
angle.
angel.
I
Yeah,
just
we gotta
really
keep that.
like it being shooties
Yeah.
with the just for the butt snap. For snapping his towel on a man's butt and saying, say my name. Like, that's why I want him. And I love him in everything I've ever seen him do.
I want him to keep
but
that
I think
mustache.
that would be his Emmy moment.
Yes, for
Yes, yes. I want love triangles within the Sons of Ipswich. Like, I want them to be secretly in love with each other. It's no longer subtext
Oh, yeah.
people.
Yeah.
Like, we're bringing it
Yeah,
forward.
they're not blood
It's
relatives.
going to be great.
Let's spin that wheel.
No, exactly.
Yeah.
It's totally fine.
And now-
it's 2025.
Yeah. Even if they were blood relatives, that seems like that's a Riverdale plot, you know?
Yeah, right, exactly. Yeah, and then I had toyed with Sydney Sweeney to come in and play Kate for the Pogue-Kate relationship, just so we have got a blonde bombshell in there, because I got to appease the guys at the network, you know?
Yeah,
I've
we
got to
gotta-
give them something.
we gotta
Sydney
get a
Sweeney
bombshell.
is currently
And
one of
she's
the
paying that
leads
mortgage.
of our. She's playing the Sally Field role in our Smokey and the Bandit right now. Opposite
I'm just
Glenn
saying
Powell.
she's been quite vocal about needing to earn money to pay her mortgage, and she might be down to do
Sydney
it.
Sweeney,
might do
though,
both.
She's doing Sasquatch shower gel commercials, so
she has been cast in our bonus pod, not main pod.
Oh,
so I
that
think
episode is canon.
No, I
that
think-
episode is canon.
I don't
Dalton.
think- I don't
it's
think-
a fan favorite. We put it in the main feed.
it's not fair to our not paying listeners to take actors off the table on the bonus pod. I think Sydney Sweeney should still be available on main feed episodes.
Okay. Okay, well,
so we're giving you Sydney
so
Sweeney,
far as
Lindsay.
I'm concerned, our Smokey and the
Thanks.
Bandit episode is super canon.
It
It's
is
more canon even than our regular scripted episodes.
Yes,
It's
but
my favorite pitch we've ever done.
but we are giving you Sydney Sweeney. You can have Sydney Sweeney.
Thanks. Thank you.
This is how
Under protest.
This is how Hollywood works. It's a lot of negotiations like this.
Yeah.
As I'm
yeah, I mean,
sure
we
you
still got a
know.
lot of phone calls to make.
Yeah.
You know, nothing's confirmed yet.
Nothing's
so.
yeah, but this
All right.
is all good.
There's no reason why Sydney Sweeney's character in the Covenant TV series couldn't eventually be someone who they do try to burn at the stake for a sacrifice, and then it has to be escape this sacrifice and then jump into a car with Glenn Powell and go on the greatest beer run of all time.
Yes.
Because this story,
No reason why.
yeah,
no reason.
obviously this story takes place before Hell on Earth.
Yes.
Right? So
Yeah.
when hell rises to earth, sorry for the more mythology dump, Lindsay. When that happens,
Well, no, because I'm like, oh, my boys are totally messed up in that, aren't they? Like, they 100% had the Book of Damnation out. And,
No, but that's
like,
good because
That's
what
good.
we do is we do the 4 seasons of the show,
Yeah.
and then you do the movie that's set during Hell on Earth, and we figure out like what they did.
We can
Yeah.
do what they didn't
Yeah.
manage to do in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., which is to do the story set in between the Infinity War and the Endgame that's
Yes.
set during the show. We will
Perfect.
do exactly that. Season 4 is set during Hell on Earth, or we do a TV movie or a
Yeah.
theatrical film.
I think
Perfect.
that would be great. Doing like a film, that shows what they were up to.
Cut the check.
Yeah.
And then
We'll
Sydney,
get the option written into all the contracts.
Sydney
Fine.
Sweeney's not in the movie because she's having her Smokey and the Bandit moment over
Yeah.
there, and
Yeah. Yeah, she's fine. Sadly, we lose Kate before the end. Someone's got to die. So,
Right. You know what?
You know.
We don't even have to reveal for sure that it is the same character because we don't learn her actual name in Smokey and the Bandit because they just call her Smokey, which
That's
I
right.
know is not the name of the character in
maybe we
Sally
call
Field's
her
character.
Smokey because she was burned at the stake.
That
Ooh.
actually is the bit in Smokey and the Bandit.
Excellent. There we go.
See, Lindsay, we got to have you writing on all of our
Yes.
pitches.
Lindsay, I don't know. We hear you're not busy. You want to be on another podcast?
Yeah.
I mean, I want to be on all the podcasts. That's my goal in life. It's the top of the bucket list, every podcast.
Well, we're very grateful that you were on ours. Lindsay, thank you so much for being on the show. Please tell our audience, who I think
Yes.
would be very interested, all about the Bell Witches.
Oh, excellent. Well, now I feel like it's a real underwhelming experience. But The Bell Witches is a book that I wrote, which owes more to the Covenant than I care to remember. But The Bell Witches is it is a YA/crossover, because you have to say that now because everyone reads every book, and I love that. But it is a fantasy novel set in Savannah, Georgia, about 16-year-old Emily, who has grown up in Wales in the UK with her father. Her mother died when she was a baby. She has no other family. Her father has told her that all the other family have died. It's just the two of them. And shortly before the events of the beginning of the book, her father has died in a tragic car accident. And she discovers that she has an aunt and a grandmother in Savannah who come to claim her. So we begin our story with Emily in Savannah as she arrives, first time ever setting foot in the United States, meeting all of this family. The clue is in the name. We discover that Emily is in fact a witch, and from a long line of dynastic witches. And her grandmother is in fact the current and only Bell Witch. And she is keen to get to Emily and help her come into her power, which will fully develop. Which now I'm like, ouch, on her 17th birthday. Well, it's not on her 17th birthday. It's on the full moon closest to her 17th birthday is when our witches come into their powers. So that is a whole thing. I can't tell you anything else about that without giving away complete spoilers. But there's a prophecy, and Emily kills a wolf. What could that be? I don't know. And there's a mysterious boy in town.
Ooh.
And that's all I'm prepared to say. But there's kissing and witches, and it's set in Savannah. And I don't know how many people know Savannah as well as we should all love to, but it's set in real life Savannah. So we go to Bonaventure Cemetery. It talks about the history of the whole town. It's very much woven into the real history of Savannah, which is wacky and crazy and almost as nutty as Ipswich.
Oh, cool.
So I hope that people will enjoy it.
Now, we have some listeners in the UK where the book is out already, right?
It is out already in the UK and Canada and Australia.
Okay.
And we are the only ones being
What the
forced to wait. I know. Foul. Just filth.
I know it's a little late now, but I do want to let you know you were allowed to write Emily into your pitch. You could have come and pitched us a stealth Bell Witch's TV show.
Okay, now here's where we get into some potential stuff, because we do reserve the right to use characters from people's pitches in our canon.
That's right. We don't want to steal your IP.
Steal a character
we can't steal your IP.
by Lindsey Kelk. This is.
I don't want to open the door to HarperCollins lawyers to you, because you don't want
true.
that.
We're already poking a very large bear. You could say they're the size of the entire planet.
Yes.
The universe
Universal, leave us alone.
Yes.
But yes, everyone check that out. And where else can we find you?
Where are your social media homes?
And
social
your audio
media,
homes.
mainly I'm on Instagram. I would say I am everywhere, except for x.com, which I am not at. Notably not on X, but I am on Blue Sky, I'm on Threads, I'm on Instagram. I have a Facebook page, but it's at Lindsey Kelk on all of the socials, and you can hear me ranting wildly about professional wrestling every single week on Tights and Fights with the incredible Hal Lublin and Danielle Radford. If you've ever cared about wrestling, even for 15 minutes in your life, I recommend you give it 5 minutes of your time, because we have fun over there. We have almost as much fun as you have here.
It is an excellent show.
You
have maximum fun.
You have maximum fun. Once again, this podcast is, however, our artist owned and listener supported. But Tights and Fights is, like, as you frequently say on the show, it is the only wrestling podcast. But
the only
if
one.
there were other wrestling podcasts, I imagine that they would be like less cheerful, less lighthearted, less like politically progressive, less.
I feel like if there were others, they're usually broadly hosted, if they were to exist, by just a bunch of straight men telling the listeners how wrestling should be.
Yes.
Whereas we still like to fantasy book, of course, and call out differences in opinion that we might have with the company in charge, but we do it while talking about butts and cats.
Yes.
Yeah, tap and titles.
People and fashion corner and tap and titles. Yeah, I mean, we really do have fun. It's a really great time, and it's good spirited, and we don't like to yuck people's yum. So please come hang out with us.
It's the best wrestling podcast. Can't recommend it highly enough.
It's the only one that I have continued to listen to for the entire time I've been a wrestling fan.
Yes.
I have only ever faded off of Tights and Fights when I faded off of wrestling, and usually I fade off of wrestling long before I fade off of Tights and Fights. And I'm able to maintain enough enthusiasm just for Tights and Fights beyond my viewing of wrestling. And then when I do get back into wrestling,
you're in the Tights and Fights universe, you know, like you're keeping up with people's pets, you're keeping up with Totty Tomato and Potty Potato. Like, you need to be here. We need to know who's got a cat, who's got a new dog. These are the things that are important to people.
Yes.
Who's doing Sabrina Carpenter inspired gear? Like, that's what we're here to deliver to you.
I don't follow wrestlers on like Instagram or TikTok or anything. I get those fun social media updates from you and Danielle. That's how I get
How
them.
else would you know who got engaged?
Yes.
Like, these are the important
I wouldn't even
things
know
that
that
people
Ludwig
need to
Kaiser and
know.
Tiffany Stratton were a couple if it wasn't for Tights and Fights. And now I know that forever.
Yeah.
So, Lindsey, thank you so much for joining us today. We have a couple of nice little treats for our regular listening audience that we will jump to after we let you go. So thank you for being on here. Oh, man. Thank you so much to Lindsey for being on the show.
Yes.
That was so much fun.
Wonderful guest. But that's not all. We have a little special treat.
That's right. So I have a little teaser that I think I've been working on the script for Mystery Men, and I've written a scene that does not fit in the movie, but would be a really good teaser to include on the tail of a different movie.
So we can tell people that this was originally written to be a post-credits for Old Dark House. But when we recorded Old Dark House and you heard how it actually ended,
I was like,
we realized it didn't quite fit.
It didn't feel like it should be like, okay, here's a commercial for a completely different movie.
Yeah, so you probably noticed there was not a post-credit for Old Dark House, which is unusual for us.
Yeah.
Dylan did write one because I didn't have a post-credit for like what I wanted to do. So I was like, hey, do you want to write like a Mystery Men teaser?
Yeah, so I did.
Yeah.
But here's the thing. Retroactively, I am going to make this a post-credit scene to Hell's Angels. Which was
interesting.
Abe
Okay.
Goldfarb's
Yeah.
pitch based on House of a Thousand Corpses. Because it sort of follows directly out of it.
Okay.
So, for the first time ever, we're doing a little tease for the immediately next episode at the end of a guest episode. Okay, so here we go. We've just finished watching the Firefly family tear Satan apart bodily. And now we go to credits roll, and then over black.
Time was, I didn't mind being confined to the kids' table.
A match is struck, casting a flickering orange light on a handsome man with a neat black beard. He's played by Daniel Kaluuya. He raises the match towards what appears to be a cigarette perched on his lip. With the cig bouncing in his mouth, he adds,
Less stress, absolutely no responsibility.
He sips at the flame through his cigarette, which screams in agony as it's lit.
Less friction with the older bruv. I mean, in what, 200,000 years?
He inhales, and when he blows the smoke out through his nostrils, it takes the shape of a howling human face before dissipating.
I only tried to kill him once.
We cut over the man's shoulder, and in the dim light of nearby torches, we see that he's sitting across from an ancient jail cell with stone walls and crooked steel bars. The man in the cell sits like Rodin's The Thinker, but burlier. Did you really come here just to eulogize your dead brother, Osiris?
Hey, that's Lord Osiris. I own your soul, remember? Show some respect.
You leave me down here alone to rot for centuries at a time and still expect my allegiance? If it were in my power, I would kill you in a heartbeat.
Well, it ain't, innit? And believe me, this private purgatory is a hotel suite compared to what awaits souls who don't owe me a favor. And who knows? If you pull through for me, maybe I can arrange better digs. A new throne, maybe? Something small and sensible like Monaco or Luxembourg.
The prisoner pauses. What choice does he have? What do you want? To avenge your brother?
Nah, I got no quarrel with the new queen of hell. But as it happens, another seat just opened up in her court. One of the old gang just kicked it, see? Red guy, pointy tail, you'd have liked him. But if I'm gonna join the grown-ups, I need to make a statement. And you, your highness.
Osiris points with his lit cigarette. The smoke reaches out desperately through the bars and towards the prisoner's chiseled jaw before evaporating.
You smell like box office to me.
Osiris flicks the cigarette around in his hands and extends it between the bars. The prisoner accepts it.
What do you say we reintroduce the world to...
The prisoner inhales the soul cigarette. The tip glows red, and with another scream, we see the unmistakable visage of Dwayne Johnson.
The Scorpion King.
Cut to black.
I'm so glad you decided to follow through on this.
I have said this before, I will reiterate it. Mystery Men is the script where I am deliberately fighting against any impulse that something is too cute or fan servicey. Every time I have an idea like that, I have to make it work.
Well, I told you should. A few months ago, I was like, you should really make the Scorpion King the villain of Mystery Men because he's the one bit of the mummy lore
that we
haven't
didn't touch. So I'm like, people will love to see the Scorpion King in here. And what's more is I finally get to pick up. It very easily leads to picking up the thread of we mention Osiris existing back in the first Dark Legion movie, and then we never mention him again. What is his deal?
Yeah.
So now Scorpion King just happened to have sold his soul to Osiris, right?
There we go.
So there we go. Osiris and the Scorpion King will be the villains of Mystery Men. You will hear that pitch in 2 weeks.
In 2 weeks. Wow.
And I got a lot of fun shit planned, and hopefully I will land that plane and it will be good.
And it won't be as traumatizing as the old Dark House.
There will be so little trauma. There will be horror elements.
Of course, it's hell.
Yeah. But it will be it'll be a good time. My goal is that it will be a good time.
That's good.
Yeah.
So meet us back here in 2 weeks to figure out how the hell our hero from what is it? The fucking Forbin experiment is going to take down the Scorpion King.
Yes.
It can only happen in the Dark Universe.
That's right.
We've written it.
And who do we have to thank for this Dark Universe this week? Let's give a shout out to some of our patrons, our executive producers. These are people who support us at the $15 a month level and by themselves. A nice little shout out here on the show. Thank you to Brian Egan, Brent Dreyer, Callie, Mar Bendlar, Matt Thackeray, Moose, and Soonmot. And let's have a big round of applause for our studio executives. These are patrons who have signed up to support us for $25 a month. And if you do that, even just for 1 month, you get to pick one of the movies that we will do on the Studio Mandate segment on the bonus pod. So thank you so much to Alyssa, Beerus, BotBotB, Bill French, Joe Valiant, Jonathan Morgantini, Cadel, and Tom Webster. We really appreciate your support of our show.
All right. Thank you, everybody. This has been another great guest pitch from our guest, Lindsey Kelk. Go follow her on all the social media, listen to Tights and Fights, read her book. And in 2 weeks, we will be back here for Mystery Men. We will see you all on the internet and on the Discord. And until next time,
Stay afraid of the dark universe.